All right, welcome to another drawing video. Today I'm going to be going through this drawing of a mermaid. It's a lot of fun to do. So once again, like in all my previous videos, I always start with that first 30-second drawing, that first initial concept. Really wanted to get the movement of the tail, the body going into the tail, it's sweeping up there. I think that's kind of what really makes a mermaid sing and tick. Throwing in some fins and some different things. And this one actually changes quite a bit in the drawing. There are things that happen later on. There are pieces of the hair that move, or fins, things like that differ up and change. For example, the arms there. In this drawing, I just kind of ignore the arms for a little while. I want to concentrate on the body, the head, the tail, really get it going. I had an idea for this. It's interesting because if you're drawing men, you can get away with a whole lot. Men are allowed to be much more ugly. Men are allowed to have bumps and bruises and weird lines and different things going on, crags in their faces and lines and creases and things like that, where women need to be very, very simplified. They need to really not have a lot of that. If you start to throw in like folds on the face or things like that, they start to look like an old crone. They start to look very, just not as attractive. So for this one, I did want to do something, and I wanted it to be cute, but I also didn't want to go just a very traditional, hey, draw a cute girl and then put a fishtail on it. I wanted something a bit more original. My big inspiration for it was actually the sea creatures in Luca. I thought the faces on some of the underwater creatures were a lot of fun. I had a good time with it. Still looked cute. I'm not throwing in a bunch of those cracks and crevices, the lines and things like that, so it'll still be pretty clean and cute looking, but it's not going to just be, a hot chick with a tail. So yeah, like I said, going in, starting to do a lot of these details, really that curve of the tail, I'll go back to that over and over again. Jump up to the face, put in some of the details there, the pupils. Once you start getting in some of these dark areas, it really starts to sing and you start to see more of what's going on there. Nice, cute little mouth going on. Some lips. I wanted her to have, not just ears. I wanted her to have fins. I wanted her to have, not necessarily gills, but those fins. Something to keep everything looking more fish-like. It is a mermaid, and, it does have hair and fingers and things like that, but I wanted to keep the fishy aspect of it as well, and still tried to make it cute. Really trying to push that. I've drawn a lot of drawings of different characters. A lot of times they'll ask for, hey, we need, it's got to be a 16-year-old. They have to be semi-attractive, semi-athletic, and I see that a lot, and they kind of want the same thing over and over again. And these, I'm trying to do something a bit different, a bit unique, a bit more interesting than that. For example, the arms of this mermaid, very, very thin, almost just these twig-like arms compared to this much wider tail that gets used a lot more often. That's that balance, or that variety of shapes, where I have some small shapes in the arms and large shapes in that fin. These big fins coming out the side of her face, and then this teeny little nose in there. You have these big eyes versus the rest of her face, which is much smaller. This big flowing shape of the hair versus a very small, tiny waist. The variety of those shapes, and having things that are thin, having things that are thick, having things that are large and medium, having lines that are darker than others, all of that visual interest is going to just give it a lot of personality. It's going to give it a lot of desirability to it. It's just going to look like a good drawing. A lot of straights versus curves. I'm trying to push the straights in the fins coming off her head. Very straight lines versus that nice soft curve of her face and her jaw. The fishtail, of course, I want it to feel very liquid, very moving. So you put in those big curves going on there. Just nice big sweeping curves in that. Not a lot of straights there, where I might push them in the arms or in her back, things like that. The fins, I think at this point I've got two different types of fins. I have some on the side of her face, and then I have those ones down a bit farther. Later on in the drawing, I think I unify them. It's like just to keep it visually consistent. Not that there's anything wrong with either of them. I just wanted it to be the same thing. Like this fin on the back, I've got that fin with the ribbing going in, kind of like off of the face. We have those ribs and then kind of the webbing in between them. I kind of decided that was the style I was going to go for this particular drawing. It's going to take me a while to decide to do it all over the drawing. So yeah, just going in, making it more detailed, going in a bit darker each time, really pushing some of those lines as I like it a bit more, and keeping that balance, going back and forth from tail to the head, never just losing one part of it and focusing too much on another so that I can see the whole. I've mentioned it in a previous video that a lot of times I'll squint down at a drawing to kind of see the whole thing. You know, I squint so the whole thing kind of fuzzes out and you just see the bigger picture as opposed to just all the little details and all the little lines. It's a trick I like that works pretty well. Shading it a bit more, giving it some variety as far as the value goes in the drawing as well. So a bit of the headband, the top that she's wearing, punching some of the lines in there. So this was a lot of fun to do. I had done the previous one, which was the evil witch lady, which was a lot of fun to do. And this one then, you know, sometimes I like to do something that maybe my daughters would like. I've got 2 sons and 2 daughters, so I'm trying to be equal for them. So it's not all just, you know, dinosaurs and lasers and robots, that sometimes I get a cute little mermaid in there. And honestly, I have no problem drawing them. It's a lot of fun to just do this sometimes, to get these cute little things in there. And then my daughter comes home and I get to show her, I drew a mermaid. And I look pretty cool doing that. So a lot of fun to do. Wanted to have my own spin. The hair is interesting. This is something I learned back when I was in college, and it was kind of an intuitive lines where you just kind of let go. There are times when I'm trying to control the drawing so much that it looks stagnant. It looks very harsh. It looks really, and it's just not, it doesn't have that feel to it. And sometimes you just need to let go. Just let the pencil just kind of move. Let your hand do what you've trained it to do all these years. There's a story that my teacher told me. He was working as an effects artist. I believe it was on Iron Giant, although don't quote me on that. But he was working on the movie, and he was having a hard time getting this explosion right. And explosions need to be very dynamic and very natural with these big sweeping lines and things. And he was just having a hard time with it. He took it to his supervisor, who took the paper and in about 2 minutes just kind of and you could see his hand make these big movements, and you could see his shoulder move, and you could see his body move, because he was letting go. He wasn't trying to control the line so much as let it go and let what happens happen in the drawing. And you do that, you know, so with the hair, just let it go and just let it kind of flow out there. And then I can erase parts that maybe don't work, and then I can go in afterward and really narrow it down. But that initial just movement is really important, something that's kind of hard to do. You want to control every aspect of the drawing, and then to sit there and just let go and let the drawing kind of dictate what it needs to be. Let your hand kind of just lead the drawing along. Can be very difficult sometimes, but those happy accidents sometimes just make it. There are artists out there, just beautiful, beautiful stuff. I think of Calvin and Hobbes. Some of those lines are just really hard to replicate, some of the movement that he has, because he's letting it go and just letting it be free. Just always loved that. So something I try and incorporate there, especially for hair, for things like that, something that feels very whimsical and natural. There are things that need to be controlled. If I'm drawing a robot, you're going to need some straight lines. You're going to need some of those types of things. But for flowing hair underwater, yeah, you're going to want to go natural. You're going to want to let it just flow out. So going in, just like I have previous drawings, some of the hair, just keep moving along with the hair. Build up some of that texture, nice light lines. You've got the outlines there to kind of show you where it is, but then inside of it, go with the hair. If I start going away from the hair, it'll have a different feel to it, and maybe that's what you're looking for. But with this one, I certainly want the hair to feel like it's all moving in that direction. You get the feel of all these strands of hair going in. Really punching the eyes. The face is just always where the eye is going to rest on a lot of these drawings. That's where you're going to naturally go. That's what we look at as human beings. That's what you want the person to experience first. That's where the expression is. That's where the soul is. You know, the eyes are the window to the soul. So you really want to make sure that that face has a lot of the contrast in it, has all of those lights and darks, so that your eye does move there. Going in on the tail, doing some scales. Sometimes I'll just do these little patches of scales. Sometimes I'll go in and just scale the whole thing, and that has a totally different feel as well. The little bits of scales sometimes just gives you the feeling that there's some scales there, and you fill in the blanks naturally with your mind. Sometimes if you go in and actually put in every scale, it gives it this very textured feel to it. I think of the the dragon drawings that Nico Marley did in the How to Train Your Dragon movie that just has this grit to it and this texture and this feel to each of the drawings. It took forever to do all those scales that he does, and it's a really great feel. So neither is an answer to go for. I go back and forth sometimes to see what I want. Putting some barnacles into the hair, wanted her to feel a little built up, like she's been under the sea for a long time. I didn't want to put those too much on her body. Then she's going to feel crusty, whereas in the hair, it almost feels like berets or stuff in the hair, something that's more decorative than, kind of crusties like you get on a whale where they have these barnacles built up, or on the bottom of a sea ship. So I wanted her to feel cute and decorative still. A couple of these spots here to add some visual interest, just to differentiate some of the scales. They're catching light or shadow in different ways. Having that built up in there and just going through the final little details, little bits of shading, light coming through those fins. Oh, and she needs some eyelashes. I'd forgotten those. Give her a bit more expression. Then I'll go through on this one. Just a couple little bubbles just to place her a little bit. Not really necessary, but kind of fun to have her in there. Punch the hands for sure. Hands very expressive. You're going to want to punch those as well. And just going in on the hair to finish this one out. And I think that is just about it for this drawing. Thanks for watching today's drawing. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and leave a comment at the bottom if there's something specific you want to see drawn, and maybe it'll make it into a future video.